Hello there, everyone, and welcome back to the special Halloween episode of the Colonelcast. Yes, it is coming out in November, though, because I'm not changing my schedule. We are talking about UZUMAKI, the new horror anime, and with me is Erich McCoy.
Hey there, Colonel. Happy to talk about some anime, the Japanese style of animation, where, they cut the budget around after the first episode.
Yeah, they did, which is that's the most that I heard people talking about this. I didn't want to watch it till all the episodes were out, and it was horrible seeing it unfold and people posting clips on Twitter and stuff, and it looked atrocious. I do think people might have over-exaggerated a little bit, at least for 3 and 4.
It's only bad in fits and starts.
Yeah, and it's only ever really, really bad for like more than a couple seconds in the.
Right.
I think episode 2 has the worst of it, but it's
mostly having to do with running. When you really like zoom in on people's legs as they're animated trying to move, it looks particularly bad. But
yeah, that stuff's not great. But it's it's no secret, though, that the first episode is the really standout one as far as the animation quality. I thought 4 had a lot of really good moments as well, but
4 had some really good stuff in it, yeah.
Yeah, but just to start it off so high and then to have it fall off a cliff and then sort of climb its way, like I'd say most of the way out by 3 and 4. It's It's an odd thing, and I was actually kind of hoping that that's how it would go, because 2, frankly, does not have the most interesting stuff in it. It has that's sort of the one that I think they could have skimped on, and it hurts the project the least overall.
That's the odd thing, is that because of the way the show is structured, and actually it's like very close to how the book itself is structured, it was never going to be any more than just a collection of like scary things that happened. Maybe they could have lengthened or like rearranged some of the events to make it a little bit less, like, it's definitely picaresque in a way.
Yeah, I honestly thought the structure was very different, though, when you compare them, because it's sort of in the original, right, it's like all these chapters and stuff, they just sort of happen one after the other, like every event just takes place one after the other. There's not really like a running plot line through it outside of just the relationship, like very basic sort of relationship between the two main characters. But both this and the live action version that I also rewatched for this from the year 2000 was they both like weave the stories in and out of each other and stuff a bit more.
Right.
It covers some of that. I would say the live action one does a better job of that overall, because it
really.
Yeah, it has more like, it just feels like these things are happening at like times that make sense and stuff, like it'll have like carved out like days, like, oh, she goes to school here and she sees the slug guy, and then she sees then she goes back home, and that's when there's the dad's dead in the tub or whatever. And it's in this one, it sort of felt more like it kind of starts and stops, like there's very defined like not even scene transitions, they just start and stuff, and they just cut away, and then suddenly we're in like page 4 of like chapter 8 or whatever.
For me, the worst one was the Jack in the Box boy, where just when he comes back, it's just very sudden, and not in a good way, not in like a shocking, surprising way, more in just like, oh, we're really doing this now? This is just how this is happening? Like, like when he comes out for the last time or whatever, it's just like this.
Especially then, the live action one I thought handled that great, because it's it actually, like, he's like the first thing that happens, but he's like popping out, and he pops out like 4 or 5 times, he does this thing where he leaps out of the bushes or whatever at her. And that stuff, it felt more natural there, although it doesn't have
that kind of repetition can sustain itself a bit better.
Yeah. It doesn't have the resolution to that, though. It never has him do like come out of his like coffin or whatever and jump around at them, so.
Yeah, right.
The live action one's weird because they made it before they'd finished the whole story, right?
Really?
Because, it's got like half of it, and so it only has content from up to like chapter 8, so up to like the slug boy and stuff, or the snail boy.
Wow.
And it just the craziest thing for me is the end. Spoilers for UZUMAKI, by the way, which is I guess for the base plot of UZUMAKI, for people who don't know, is there's an evil spiral curse. And they, the artist and author of it, Junji Ito, he mines all of the spooky things related to spirals that can happen for like, you know, spooky scenes and stuff. But the way that the, you know, because the anime obviously continues until the whole town is like fucked and everything, and there's all sorts of crazy stuff going on, and they go down and they find like the ancient city underneath and everything. But the movie it just sort of like, there's a point where Shuichi like twists in on himself, and then it's just sort of over. They flash to like some screens of like random things that were like too high budget to like do in motion or whatever for the movie. They flash and they show you like the snail boy for like a second and stuff, and like a couple other things. They skipped out on Azami, who's like the main become like almost the mascot of the whole thing, with like her eye disappearing into the spiral.
Yeah, that's if the snail boy was too hard to pull off, Azami is probably not going to.
Yeah, so they
think since that was the main imagery that like the series really showcases, that they do that, but yeah,
and I think that's a pretty big miss for the movie, I think. But it's weird because they have there's a bit where there's like a detective character in it who like he starts running around and looking at library books and stuff, and he's like, oh, there's an ancient snake curse in the history of the town. And then snake curse. Yeah, but then like they don't explain it or anything. He's the guy who hits the Jack in the Box kid with his car, and he also dies in the car crash, so he can't even tell the main characters about like his snake cult based discoveries here. And just nothing comes of that, and it just sort of stops. So yeah, it ends with like a bit of a sequel tease, and like, you know, they'd have to restructure everything because they killed Shuichi for no reason, but I think it could have had a decent sequel, I guess. But
another kid who's obsessed with the spiral curse and hates it.
Yeah, he
has to come into that story.
He moves in and then just takes his place. Yeah, that could work. Why not? Yeah, it's very weird, and there is no like perfect adaptation, I don't think, because the anime sort of, it has about as much time as for like the whole thing as the movie did for, you know, like for like half of it or whatever. So there's just not enough time in either of these to really properly cover everything and let it play out in the way that it sort of, I think, deserves to, like have all these scenes breathe and stuff and build the tension.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
It's the kind of thing, like, I don't know, just because you can kind of read the manga at whatever speed you want to. I kind of just read it over, I think, 2 days, just like devoured it for the most part. I rented a book from the library that was just the entire collected materials. Oh my god.
Oh yeah.
My alarm always goes off.
Yeah.
And like, just, you get thing after thing after thing after thing, and it's all like a just variation on a theme. It's just like increasingly more and more disgusting and freaky and weird, and like I kind of don't think that it translates to I feel like manga is the best place for it, because you can kind of encapsulate it into those chapters, and something freaky happens, and then you can go into the next one. When you try to like enforce it into a story and have like beats in it and have characters that like go from freaky thing to freaky thing and somehow like maintain their sanity, or like it has that like TV show kind of quality where you kind of have to like forget that the last thing happened.
Yeah,
or,
the
like,
characters take a while to catch on, given
why
like
would they
how many things are happening.
Why would they stay in the town after 3 or 4 crazy things happen, but 10 to 12 crazy things happen, and they don't seem to have a problem with it for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like once my dad turns himself into a fucking coiled up thing in the wash tub, I'd leave. Take your mom out of there. Just get out as fast as you possibly can.
There is some interesting stuff with like the mom goes into like is just a hospital.
Yeah.
It doesn't even seem like an asylum or anything. It's just a hospital because of what happened to her husband. Like, she cuts off her fingertips. She like has everybody wear hats so that she doesn't see the spiral of their hair. So like, there are things that develop out of the events of the thing, which you could kind of make into a linear story, but I would be out of the fucking town in the first 3 three encounters.
Yeah.
And they do eventually tell you why they can't leave the town, which I think is good, and you need to kind of do that eventually to keep the characters there. But yeah, it works best in manga form.
It does, yeah. And I think the unfortunate thing is a lot of the stuff that I think could have benefited the most from being in motion, like the hair bit is all in the really horrible low budget episode. The lighthouse, they don't even bother to have like the lighthouses like beams of light like coiling in on themselves like they do in the manga.
Right.
And that would have been really cool to see it like swirling around and stuff. And even I think the city at the end and stuff should have been, because it's all spirals, it should just be like twisting and moving at all times too, but it's it's totally static here.
The weird thing about the animation thing is just like, I would just, and I think they kind of do this, but like I would just focus in on the like big moments you really have to do, make those super cool. Everything else can kind of just like catch minimum budget, catch like the low effort parts, but like the big moments that are really well drawn, but really well like could be conceptualized and animated really well, put the effort into those. And like you're right that the hair moment doesn't translate at all, like
especially
it is a kind of silly thing, but like you can animate that in a way that is very frightening and weird. And the light stuff doesn't come across at all, really. So
yeah, and it is weird because the first episode is animated really well the whole way through, right? Like even when they're just walking around and stuff, like I don't know what they're doing. I don't know if it's like 3D models or something that they're doing to achieve this, but it's so high fidelity. It's so nice. You can see her like hair blowing in the wind and stuff. It's fantastic. But like I feel like if they'd I don't know how the production on this stuff works. I know there's like two different like studios for the different episodes and stuff, but like if they had just pulled the
studios and directors,
but if they just pooled the budget a bit, like so maybe there's enough money to go around for all of them and make all of them look like as good as like episode 3 and really just focus on all of like the most horrifying scenes and stuff. It could have really like I think saved the whole thing and just made it a lot more even.
Honestly, just give all of the horror scenes to the first studio who made the first episode. Have the other people do basically everything else. And then and I think that might actually work really well, just because you go from the really mundane reality of the regular animated shit, and then when something scary happens, it becomes hyper real and like detailed and crazy, and that might play better than one episode that's really well animated overall, and then there is a drop off after that. There's a lot of different ways they could have saved it. I think if you cut out like the Jack in the Box boy and you cut out some of the other ones that are kind of not really up there with the other stuff, like get rid of, I'd say maybe the hair thing. The hair thing's probably pretty cool if you could do it right and stuff, but it's a bit silly. It's not as scary as the other stuff, and they don't get to like build up her hair nemesis or whatever very well in the show. Yeah, right. She just kind of is just instantly like, oh, I'm going to do this to my hair, and then is doing it.
Yeah,
it's like there is no build up at all.
She just shows up.
You don't even have to do much for that. Like, all you need is a single, 10-second scene here and there where she's, jealous of it and trying to do something with her hair. You don't have to do much. But they didn't.
The movie handles it actually really well. There's a scene kind of early on where, they're in the bathroom. Because, they added a bit where, a guy falls down the big spiral staircase and dies in the movie.
Oh, okay, right.
But they're in the bathroom trying to, kind of regroup. And then this other girl and her, popular girl, clique friends come out of the other bathroom stalls. And she's like, oh, I just want to be the center of attention. I want everyone to pay attention to me. And that's, that's really all you need, You just have to make her, kind of distinct and stand out for, one bit like that. And it was fine. And then they don't have the hair fight or anything. They kind of rush all that at the end, but
Right.
It's Oh,
wow. I'm looking at the live action version of the hair. That's funny.
Yeah, it is painfully low budget. The place that they shot it in is perfect. Just their physical, locations that they're at it always looks like the town and stuff. This, old Japanese, rundown town that's sort of struggling to build into, the modern world and stuff. But, it is, a lot of the spirals and stuff that happen in the background, because they can't really draw them on, they're just sort of, it looks like they took the spiral tool in like Adobe Premiere and just sort of cranked that up, gave it 2 keyframes or whatever, and that's good enough.
That's funny.
Yeah. I thought the movie
honestly,
was...
It looks like the aesthetic of it is pretty good. Just at least from the screenshots.
It is cool to look at. Yeah, it's very green, which is a lot of movies back then are like one color. They got like their one color over the whole movie and stuff. But it works really well for some things, and I think including that, it's really neat. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard because a lot of the things that happen are very absurd on. The horror is sometimes not as applicable when people can summon their own tornadoes or whatever that they're riding, and as things kind of get more and more ridiculous, it can kind of become what genre am I watching for? In those moments you kind of just have to give it some grace and let it see what it's going to become, because I do honestly like the ending. I like where they get to, and them building an entire town that is just a big spiral. I did not understand that where were they getting the building materials to do this, because
I guess just
you
from
have
the
a town
from the other knockdown buildings or whatever from the typhoon.
No, that's
I
the
guess
thing, is that you have to understand that the original town was that structure, I think, and that every couple of years it repeats itself. So those building materials must have just been there. They were not present in every single building that existed in the town as it was at the start of the manga.
Mm-hmm. And it's kind of an It curse, I guess, like the Stephen King book, where it comes back every century or couple centuries. And this is technically just a theory by Shuichi, who I don't think really knows anything about any of this, but it's it's the most that the show kind of gives us, and I like the concept that it comes around and stuff, and it's history just forgets about it every time, and no one's prepared for it and stuff. It really leans into some of the Lovecraftian unexplainable, insane kind of horror stuff.
Unknowable. You'll never understand why or how or what for.
They go underneath the town and they go into the big ancient spiral city and stuff, but they don't go into any buildings or anything. They don't learn any secrets about it. It's just, this is there, whatever it's there for, it's not good. It's it's ruined our lives, and we're just gonna die down here. And technically we know more than anyone else, but it feels like they still know nothing about it at all. So
right, and it's all just supposition. It's all just this kid who's been obsessed with why the spirals are so bad is just kind of reasoning how this could be happening.
Yeah. It's a lot of just really cool concepts and stuff that you can see shine through, and just because Junji Ito is he's one of the best artists doing this stuff, and it's
right.
Yeah, every single one of these images and stuff, especially whenever the anime is able to capture it really well and stuff, all the scariest looking
really
stuff.
Translate.
Yeah,
I'd say by and large, if you were looking to get into this, I'd say just read the manga. If you're interested in seeing more, getting outside of that, that's fine. But yeah, the manga is the thing you need to, his original illustrations, everything that he builds up, just the format, everything about it is the way to get this story.
Absolutely, yeah.
The animation is cool, but I almost feel sometimes it doesn't add enough to be you need to check this out. That this is a necessary byproduct of the original. His illustrations are detailed enough and cool enough on their own that adding motion to them sometimes just isn't necessary. You get everything you need from the original still image.
Mm-hmm. And I would say the movie, the live action one, obviously none of the charm of the visuals and stuff, none of the detail is there because it's all a movie. And some of the stuff they really skip on, they don't show the dad dead in the tub at all. They made it a washing machine, which it would have been fun. And they added a little thing in there where he puts like a mirror in before he gets in there, and they try to connect that to like the snake cult thing. But what I thought they were gonna say was like, oh, he put the mirror in there to like look at himself in his new like spiral form or something. I thought that would have been cool, but
What is the deal with the snake cult thing that they introduced?
I don't know. They really don't talk about it. There's just the one scene where the he's in the library and he's reading up on an evil snake cult where everyone, I guess, brings their mirrors into Dragonfly Pond and then dies or something.
I guess in the first 8 chapters, they're just trying to find anything that they could use to explain to an audience what's going on.
Yeah.
And they just thought Snake Cult was the closest thing to that.
I guess. It sort of works as its own, like, weird, unknowable thing because, it's not explained and there's no sequel and stuff, so...
Does it have the bits where the 2 kids wrap themselves up into each other?
No, it sort of just does that with Shuichi, and he wants to do that with Kyrie, but she runs away because it's not a very fast-moving creature, but yeah. They skip on a lot of stuff like that. Like like I said, they don't have Azami in there at all. They don't. The Slug Kid, I thought they handled the Slug Kid stuff pretty good. Like there's he turns real creepy and stuff, but they don't have like an extended scene of him being like fully transformed or anything with the eye stalks and everything. It's just sort of like the one shot of him crawling up the wall.
Right. The snail. Wait, snail or slug?
Oh,
snail.
Yeah, snail kid.
The snail kid thing. Why slug is more slug. The snail kid thing is one of the creepiest things to me, just because of like they apparently don't tell the parents until after he's already mostly transformed, even though even before that it's like very clear that he's transforming into some weird thing. And then later on they're like eating snail people snail people. And is it Shuichi's brother? Or I'm sorry, Kirei's brother turns into a snail creature, and they kind of like let him go down a cliff rather than stay in the town.
It's a really sad scene because she has to like poke him with a stick and tell him to like run away and stuff, and she's like, "Oh, I'm gonna come back and get you," and that's the last time we see of him. Like she never gets the chance to come back and try to get him or try to help him. Like this poor kid's just a snail forever, I guess, in this. Hiding wherever under the town in a cave somewhere, like who knows?
Yeah, and they're eating the snail. Like it's just like it's very freaky.
Yeah, and you can see their like burnt up like skull in their face and stuff, even when they're fully cooked through and everything. And it's yeah, it's freaky. Yeah, and there's they try to escape the town by running away, and there's that's when he turns into the snail and stuff, and there's like a conflict with another group of people because they're just eating each other. There's I always assume that he was like the mayor because he's got like the sash over him, but I think that's just like a strap for his bag or whatever. But he's
I like the thought that he's the mayor.
Yeah, and especially because he's reduced to like he's like, oh, I've seen bugs that do this, and he just crawls inside of the snail's like shell and eats him raw and stuff for like their other friend they had who turned into one. And it's a lot of just like horrible things that like the way that it's making these people into monsters and stuff.
The pregnant women that turn into mosquitoes, and they're using those like hand cranked things to like dig into people's necks and stuff like that. Yeah. Oh my god,
I remembered all of that being like kind of superfluous and stuff, but seeing it in the anime and stuff, and just how horrible they are and how awful and creepy they act and stuff, and as when their babies are alive and they start talking
and like wants to get thrown back into the womb. Oh my god,
it's really horrible. And I kind of, one thing I was thinking is like this could work as like a trilogy of movies, because there's you could end like the first one with the big, when they're cremating the parents and they get in the big smokestack and stuff. You would be building up like, oh, there's all these pregnant women in the hospital during the first one, and then that's sort of the payoff in the second movie or whatever. You kind of, I feel like there are great ways that you could structure this. If you had like infinite money to make a 3-film Uzumaki adaptation, I think there are really amazing kind of ways and pretty easy places to like structure it around and stuff. But yeah, the whole and they start eating like mushrooms from the placentas growing in the babies and stuff, because the placentas grow back as like horrible spiral mushrooms, and there's just a back room full of them there.
With these freaky, and like just and maybe the scariest part of it all is the way people just take things in stride in this show. Is like just how often it's just like, oh, the placenta of these babies have turned into mushrooms and people are eating the mushrooms. Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're just gonna put it in their fucking cafeteria salad here, you know. And everyone loves it. They love these mushrooms that are, and just there's sort of one thing that's sort of running through the whole thing is the sort of subplot with Kyrie's parents and how they're dealing with it, because her father is like a potist, sculptor, whatever. Potist, I guess, works. But he's and he's making his spiral pottery and stuff, and he sort of gets convinced by Shuichi's dad early on that like he needs to make these spiral patterns. Yeah, and that it's like the highest art form and everything. So he's there's a bit where he's like goes out to collect more clay from the Dragonfly Pond, which is the center of the whole town and everything, and he's just seeing him like, oh, you can tell like Kyrie looking at him like covered in mud, being like, oh, I just went down to the pond to get more clay. Like she can tell that he's succumbing to it in the same way as Shuichi's dad did, and it's just awful to imagine. Like seeing,
she doesn't really like intervene too much. She's very much the protagonist that can only stand by as these awful things are happening.
Yeah, she's a ride-along sort of character. The most she really gets is the hair thing, and that's also something that's happening against her will, but at least it's happening directly to her, I guess. But I think I like how powerless it is and stuff, how powerless like everyone is, even people who think they have an explanation and stuff, and and just at the end when people are like they're building up the row houses and stuff, they kind of everyone like hides in these little houses that were saved from the typhoon like miraculously, and they sort of just thinking that this is like your salvation, and then you go in there and you just get twisted into it and start building it and stuff. Like any like resistance to the spiral is like you're really just giving in without even knowing it to like some new horrible like angle on it.
The people who like make themselves really twisty can just become like flowers almost, just like growing and twisting. It's pretty freaky.
And they're just spending all their time just building it out and stuff. And the moment where they finish it and they call out to each other like, oh yeah, it's finished over here, and then there's just a rumble, and then they're just gone. It's just silence. They open the door, none of them are in there. And that's like
they just fall down into the hole at the bottom. I think there didn't seem like it'd be like a new group of corpses there. It seemed to be.
Yeah, I assume that there's a lot of corpses, like I think more than the town could have and stuff, so I think there's corpses there from like the new one and from the one 100 years ago and 200 years ago, and like, you know, it's just been building up this mass, and they've been probably incorporated into the structures and stuff too, and it's just all growing into itself and building on itself with like whatever the spiral like gets in its trap and stuff, it incorporates in, and
horrifying.
Yeah, it's I think it really sticks the landing with those last couple episodes and stuff. Just I gave it a full 4.5 stars on Letterboxd, which might be a bit much, honestly, but it was.
Is that for the anime?
Yeah, but just because, which I know it probably doesn't deserve that just because of how bad episode 2 is, especially and stuff. But just I thought it stuck the landing so well, and it really, I think for some of those scenes, it elevated them like beyond where the manga was for me and stuff. Just made them so much more real and visceral, and it's just, I was really, really happy with it by the end.
The horror of it does come through, which is what needs to happen. Like, you need to understand how freaky this is and how messed up. So if like you only have 2 hours and you're not going to be able to read the manga, definitely watch the anime.
Definitely, yeah. Or you could watch the movie and get half of it, and it's weird.
Yeah, it feels like that's not the best way to take in all of the like crazy stuff that you see within the manga. So
it's overall the movie is the last way that you should watch. It's the third best of them, but I think it is still pretty good on its own. If you have, if you want to watch like a cheap J horror thing, and you've already seen The Ring and The Grudge and Dark Water and like all the other ones and stuff. It's a pretty decent one. There are weird choices with it. Like there's there's a bit where there's a transition that has like a xylophone sound effect attached to it, and then and there's not another one of those again in the movie.
Oh my God.
The soundtrack sounds like Pikmin music from this game Pikmin.
That's wild.
Yeah, it was a bizarre choice. I don't know why it's like that. I mean, I liked it. I like Pikmin. I'm a big fan, so it was a nice surprise. But it sounds, it doesn't really fit. Like,
you just didn't think of being reminded of Pikmin while you're
while these people
the
are. Yeah, definitely not. And just it would be kind of cool though, actually, if you could, because Pikmin, you know, that has all these very nice environments and stuff. If you could be there collecting like snail shells and stuff with your little Pikmin and wandering through all the spiral like grass tufts and stuff, that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, how would the Pikmin survive the UZUMAKI curse?
Yeah, they'd probably just run with it. Honestly, there'd be like a spiral Pikmin who can stretch out and reach all the things that are far away or something. I'm sure. That's the crossover we really need. That would be the perfect adaptation. Is just make it a Pikmin game. Yeah. It's there's a lot of like weird choices in it, but there's also some really good ones. Like there's a bit where they go over like to establish Kirie's and Shuichi's like a relationship. They go over some of their memories, and they're shown through. It's like a series of photos taken like stop motion almost of like, you know, like child actors and stuff or whatever, but it's just the way it like flips through them really quickly and stuff. So it's a really neat way of kind of presenting it, like through postcards that just sort of layer on top of each other and stuff. And I thought that was just random flashes of like really, really great ideas and stuff. And when they, you know, when the dad is like eyes is turning and twisting around and stuff, it has like a really wide angle lens and it zooms in on that. And just visually the way, for all of the effects that they're capable of pulling off with like no money, they really nail it, I thought. So it was it's still a really good movie, I think.
Even if I'm gonna have to check that out then.
Yeah, it's it is the inferior one out of the bunch, especially because it doesn't have half of the things and stuff in it. But yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, there's like there's like a bit in this where I forget if this was a whole chapter in the manga or not, but there's a bit where like there's a guy who's in like a building next to them who sort of starts getting these little like spiral cone kind of growths all over him, and then he like comes out and he just sort of flies away in the wind. I don't remember if that was like a bigger. I seem to remember there was like a full, like a stalking chapter where he's like watching them through the walls or whatever. Right?
Yeah. There is, and they do that a little bit in the manga, or I'm sorry, in the anime, but yeah, it's definitely more sudden and more like compressed.
Yeah, which I think that's fine, honestly, for some of these, like, because that one's like fun and stuff, but it's not like one of the core parts of the story. I don't think. I think you could, you know, skipping by that one's okay. Kind of skipping through.
What would you say is your favorite imagery from the series?
It would have to be something from like right around the start or right around the end, like just some of the earliest stuff with the dad and how his tongue is curling around and stuff, things like that. Or it's just
I really
like
love
Azami.
The like ashes coming up and like forming a face and like just like in a way that it's like taking over the town.
Yeah,
like just the smokestack of that, like going into the air. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, that stuff's fantastic, and they do it really well in the anime. But also, I thought in the movie actually they kind of skip it for the first cremation, but when they get to the second cremation, they have like both of the parents are up there in the smoke, and the dad kind of devours the mom and stuff, which sort of thematically works with like what happened to them. And that I thought they just the way that they did the effect and stuff looked really good and really convincing as well. I'm not sure how they did it with no money, because that's like the only thing that looks really, really good and super convincing in the whole movie. But it's and there's so many cool images and stuff that it's hard to even like pick just one or even like a couple, especially when it gets toward the end and it's just the whole town is just such a giant spiral. And especially in the manga, like you know every single one of these is like an individual like pen stroke from Junji Ito and stuff, and it's just the sheer detail on every image in that is fantastic.
Yeah. Where do you think he got the idea of like, oh, spirals are crazy?
I want to say I think I heard this at one point. I think he said like he got the idea sort of because the spiral is like often a sacred kind of religious symbol in a lot of like Japanese mythology and stuff, and it's sort of he wanted to see like what kind of horrible twist could I put on this and stuff. You know, there might have been like a more specific inspiration I think that he might have talked about, but I don't really remember. Yeah.
Did you read the entire manga? Did you read the like weird other chapter that he wrote?
I haven't read it in a while, but yeah, there's like the galaxy chapter at the end of the book and stuff. Yeah. I don't know where it would have been inserted into the main narrative.
That's the thing. Like it almost expands out the spiral thing way too much as to make everything else seem meaningless, and it probably happens too early in the story to really like matter at all. So
yeah, because that implies it's like a full, like the whole universe is like trapped in it, right? Which is, I think that's kind of a neat idea, but it is
it's better a neat idea, but you have to do it later on. You can't do that like in the first couple of chapters and be like, oh yeah, and then one of the girls starts fighting about their hair.
Yeah, but I mean, it doesn't. There's no real good way to slot it in because by the time like it would kind of fit narratively, it's way too late, and you're not gonna have like an astronomer looking up at friggin' Andromeda or whatever. So, right. Yeah, I think it's a neat bit.
There's a lot of weird stuff about how like somebody gives their findings to somebody else, and then like they claim that it's theirs. It's just weird. Like it doesn't really work. You can understand why it's not been included.
Yeah, there are some times in a lot of Junji Ito stuff where it seems like the plot kind of gets away from him a little bit, and there's some strange elements that are kind of extraneous that you can get rid of, you know. And that happens a couple times, I think, in this with just I don't know. I can't really think of a lot of examples, which kind of I guess speaks to the strength of this one. But it's I'd say the Jack in the Box one is probably the weakest part of the whole. Like any version of this, I think it's one of the weaker elements. Right. I think it's best actually in the live action movie, just because it's woven in better. But it's still. You know, you could cut all that because that character doesn't do anything, and the payoff scare just I don't think is good enough to justify the amount of time spent on it. But it does play better in the manga because it is like, you know, like one short chapter and stuff, and then you go on to the other stuff.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. What else is there to talk about? I wrote some notes here. Like there's a white outline in the first episode, but only sometimes. Which kind of was odd. Like some of the characters will be outlined, and it doesn't seem totally dependent on like how dark the shot is or whatever. That was just like a weird detail, I guess.
I actually like that a lot, and I like it. It happens really in the first episode, and I don't remember it happening much after that.
Yeah, I thought it's cool, but I think it's got to be more consistent. Like it's got to be at least whenever the. You know, I mean, obviously it would be good if it were throughout the whole thing, but also I think just within that first episode, it sort of comes and goes with the wind and stuff. And there's, which makes it feel like a kind of an odd choice.
Yeah, what would you do in the situation of your town being overcome by spirals and there's nothing that you can do in that situation? Like you can't stop people from like being overcome by the spiral curse.
If I could leave, I'd do that, but I assume I can't leave.
Leave is the first thing.
Yeah, but I'd probably just end up like hunkering down in one of these houses, you know, as long as I can, and just eating the snail people. Honestly, I'd probably. Yeah. I feel like I wouldn't handle any like big stressful thing like this at all. Like, just I'd crumple and just.
I mean, I would probably have a mental break at some point. I'd probably become one of the tornado people. So you would probably get your ass owned by me.
Yeah, probably. The tornado people are a weird thing because they're not really scary. They're more just weird. It speaks to like it speaks to like the corruption, the corrupting horrible effect that the spiral has on everyone, and it's turning these people into monsters who are eating the snails and whatever, and they're chasing each other and blowing down the other buildings for fun, I guess, and whatever. But it is not like a scary thing at all. Yeah. And they just sort of they get complete. I don't even remember what does it, but they get totally wrecked, and they're just gone from the whole thing. I want like someone like screams at them or something, and they're they get blown away and they're just gone. So, yeah, it's an odd thing, but I like that. I like that it's doing these like bizarre things that, you know, like other people would go like, oh, that's probably a stupid idea, I shouldn't pursue that. But it's, you know, like he's gonna go and take it the whole way and make a whole chapter dedicated to this. And even if it doesn't totally stick the landing, it's at least gonna be really cool looking and stuff. So yeah.
It's very funny to me that like they can't be portrayed as moving too fast or speaking too loudly, because anything will like raise up a tornado. I I don't think that comes across very well, just because they don't seem to be moving that much slower and they don't seem to be talking that much quieter. So.
Yeah, they have that bit where the one guy is like hammering stuff. I feel like this character's way bigger in the manga, and he just like appears for a couple key scenes in the anime. But there's this guy, he's like hammering in the nails to like working on building something. I don't know if he's building part of the spiral like unwittingly already or what, but he's letting off tornadoes everywhere because he's hammering the nails in. And then yeah, they don't really acknowledge the quiet part of it very much after that. So yeah. It's not a perfectly tight story, you know. There's a lot of strange things, especially in the anime, where they don't have the time to drill deep on these things, but yeah. I don't know. I think it still works. I think it holds together well enough that it's like a fun kind of story to follow, and especially toward the end, like seeing everything finally really unravel and just be revealed, like as revealed as it can be, is fun. And did you see the post-credit scene?
Wait, yes, I did. Which I don't remember that being in anything. Like, I don't remember the manga doing that at all.
I don't think so. Yeah,
introduces a new quote unquote protagonist character, and you kind of get the impression that it'll all happen again.
Yeah, right. The town has been rebuilt, and there's it's sort of that one scene is like animated with the fidelity of the first episode almost, and it really
right.
Like, I think that they maybe like reuse a couple shots from the first episode too there to really drive it home, but it's just this full like looping repeat and stuff, and it's like, you know, and that's like its own spiral, is the series itself is spiraling back into itself and looping around again, and that's fun.
Yeah, that was kind of surprising to me. I kind of had just left the credits on, not expecting there to be anything. Yeah. And then it started up, and I was like, oh, interesting.
I think
I didn't mind it. I don't think you need it, but it's also fine.
Yeah, I thought it was cool. I like that bit. If only just to see like their weird interpretation of like a new main duo cast or whatever, because they're kind of they almost like the Shuichi role is like with the girl and sort of this time, and she's got black hair, and that's fun to see. Yeah, but there's I
don't understand how long does it take for a new group of people to move into that area and be like, hey, we could build something here. Like,
I don't know. Yeah. Because, well, they say that time goes weird toward the middle of the spiral and stuff. So, and like, you know, the middle of the spiral, maybe everyone's been there forever or something. And because as they're walking out and stuff, like as they try to leave the town when it's all crumbling and stuff, they come back later, and it's like, oh, we've only been gone for like a day or two at most, but now they've like rebuilt the whole thing into a spiral. So I don't know, it could be like time gets accelerated and like the town sort of regenerates itself into a new form and people come back to it like really quickly, I guess. Although it does also imply that like they're, you know, the whole thing's about to repeat because the whirlpools are already forming in the river and stuff, and that doesn't go with like the like 1,000 or 100-year cycle or whatever very well.
Right.
Yeah.
I just don't know how you would like get everybody's mind off the fact that there was this town here before and it's somehow gone.
I don't know if people know that.
People should move back. Like,
yeah. It does. I guess it doesn't make sense that they wouldn't know that, because there is like, you know, there's the news lady who goes in.
It makes less sense. I feel like 100 years ago it wouldn't have been as much of a big deal.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, but just in the
honestly, even before then, like 300 years before, it wouldn't have been a big deal. But
Yeah, but I mean, there's a bit in this where like the news reporters go and they check out the slugs and whatever, and they see the dead girl with her hair is like taking all the energy out of her body and stuff. Like there's some obvious things that like if this played on the news in like the rest of Japan, like they would know about this at that point. Mm-hmm. And they do, because they send like battleships in to come and try to save them, and they just get like sucked into a whirlpool. So it's like, yeah, it's very strange. But yeah, one thing I thought they really nailed was the soundtrack on this. That was like a big highlight of even like the first teaser they released for this like 5 years ago or whatever, because this is we didn't talk about how horribly delayed this was, but yeah, just the soundtrack on it is great. It's Colin Stetson, who did like Hereditary and various other things.
Oh, really? Dang.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's, I mean, that whole stuff, it's just I don't even know what it is. I'm bad at instruments and identifying them, but it's sort of some sort of horn or flute or something, and it's just like these winding, like twirling melodies of madness and stuff. It really sells the sort of feeling of being insane, which is what you really want for this. Yeah. There's one thing that's kind of a neat little visual that I noticed was they at the end when they go down the big spiral staircase and stuff into the center of the town, and then it sort of drills up on itself, and it looks a lot like the drills from the pregnant women in the hospital earlier. Yeah, that might just be a coincidental sort of thing.
Yeah, I didn't really get the drill, and like anything that's like straight up and like
spiraling.
The spiral is within it, I guess. I kind of didn't get that as part of a spiral shape, but I guess it is.
Yeah. I don't know. Is there what else should we talk about here? I don't have that many notes. So. Yeah.
Yeah, I honestly didn't take any notes at all.
Yeah. You know, I thought it was a really fun show overall, though. I think it's definitely worth watching. I think you should absolutely read the manga first, though. And stuff, because it does execute on everything better overall. But and just also have you like read a lot of other like Junji Ito stuff at all, or?
No, I haven't. What other stuff of his is really good?
I really like Yo. It's more action, less horror. It's about like there's these evil running around like dead fish on tiny little like spider legs or whatever, like robot spider legs. Yeah. Oh my God. And then, I don't want to spoil it or whatever, but there's, strange, like, it's like the machines are powered by, like, the gases and methane given off by the dead fish or whatever, and it's, they attack the town, and one of them's a shark and stuff, and things like that happen. And that one's quite fun. There's The Enigma of Amigara Fault is, like, one of his shorts, and that's, like, that might be like his second most famous thing, because that's sort of, it's a short where like all these people, they find holes in the side of a mountain, and people like watch it on the TV as this like new discovery happens, and they see like, oh, this hole like looks perfect for me to go in, and they just get this urge to like squeeze into these holes and stuff, and then like a few weeks later they find on the other side of the mountain and whatever, there's like another set of holes that are all in horrible like contorted shapes, and these people just get twisted into like horrible like awful distorted little messes and stuff. But that's a really great little short one. There's one about like pimples, or like there's a guy who drinks a bunch of oil and he gets a bunch of horrible pimples and stuff that he squeezes out on his germaphobe sister.
Oh my God.
Yeah, all of them have some sort of disgusting, awful thing, and they've tried adapting some of them. One of the big ones is Tomie, which is about this dead girl with nebulous superpowers or something. I haven't actually read that one, but that's another big one, and they've made like 5 movies out of that one. I'm sure none of them are any good, but yeah, he does a lot of things where he'll just release like this is or I don't know how these things are released originally, honestly, but there'll always be like these collections of short stories and stuff that you can pick up, and it's just like his own like horrible like body horror Twilight Zone sort of things going on, and they're a lot of fun.
That's cool. I might have to check some of these out, because UZUMAKI was really good.
Yeah. And it's just, I don't know what he's doing now, if he's still working on new stuff really, or if he's like retired, or because this Uzumaki was from like the mid to late 90s, I think. So yeah,
I wonder if like he thinks the stuff is any good, like, because they made a movie off of it, they made a show now. Like, I wonder if he thinks it's a worthwhile effort to do his stuff.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know. He could be a John Carpenter sort, where he's just happy to have his checks for all their new adaptation or whatever. But
and like, hopefully people will read the manga based off what they see from the other things that people make. So
yeah, and hopefully they do, because they are very good. But yeah, I guess that's about all we have for Uzumaki here. Thank you very much for watching. Do you have anything to plug here, you Rich?
I am trapped in the ever collapsing spiral of Disney animated movies and live action movies. So if you find me on Letterboxd, Revan1138 on there, I am documenting my journey. And then on X.com, the Everything app, you can find me at TZARREVIN.
All right. And yeah, those Disney movies I see just from the activity feed on Letterboxd, it looks like they're starting to really collapse in on themselves. You're doing like the Lilo and Stitch fucking direct-to-DVD spin-offs and stuff.
Yeah, we're getting into the like worst part of Disney cartoon animation, where it's like they run out of ideas, plain and simple. And I can't wait for Home on the Range, where it's just like, what is this? Why are they making this?
Yeah. Are you doing all of them? Or are you going to have to do like the Johnny Depp Lone Ranger and stuff like that?
Hell yes. I've never seen Lone Ranger, so I'm actually interested in watching that, because it's a Gore Verbinski movie. I really love Gore Verbinski.
Yeah, that was like one of the biggest flops ever or something, right? That lost them like 300 million. That's fantastic.
It was so freaking expensive. Like, at a certain point, these movies just become like unwieldy, and like, unless it makes $1 billion, you're kind of screwed.
Yeah, well, I guess, it's Gore Verbinski and it's got Johnny Depp. They're going for like another Pirates of the Caribbean, but no one cares to see the Lone Ranger. I guess
also starring Armie Hammer, which
who eats people or whatever his deal is. I never looked into that too much, but yeah.
At
and
best,
Johnny Depp
just sexually assaulted people. At worst, wants to eat people.
Yeah, not good.
No,
but and then Johnny Depp is playing a Native American character, which I know there's controversy from that. So
yeah,
who knows? Yeah. It seems ill-advised, but I wish you luck on the remaining Disney things from the last couple decades or whatever. But thank you guys again for watching, and have a happy late Halloween. Goodbye.
Yes, happy Halloween.